Hello and welcome. But today we have a very, very big subject. It's one of those subjects which I wish we could do like say part 1 to 3 so we can actually break it down. But we'll try as much as possible to squeeze it in for this hour. Who better run our mission schools? Is it the church or the state? And what has the state got in place for all the mission hospitals around? What is the state saying about it? Isn't that interesting? Well, recently the Christian Council released a press statement and urging all political parties and the state to say, listen, you need to pay attention to our mission schools that are now sort of not in our hands. They used to be our property and we used to run them. We need to actually find out, is it better now or was it better when the missionaries were running these schools? Then we look at government hospitals. Now, did you know, well, hospitals in general, did you know that 40% of hospitals dotted across the country is run by one church or the other? Well, I didn't know. Now I know. What is the state policy for this? Are there any protection or anything given to them? One will say all these churches are collecting our tithe and our collection. What more protection do they need? Isn't the protection enough? Well, my name is Nana Ansakwa, the fourth and also your host. When I come back, I have two of the finest gentlemen to speak to these issues. Don't even move. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for staying. Who better run our mission schools? Is it the church or the state? Those of you who went to the mission schools, the St. Peter's, the St. Augustine's, if you went there and your son is there now, maybe you can compare the two as to which is better. With me in the studio, sat right next to me, is Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong, who is my grandfather by professional status. He becomes my grandfather straight away. Reverend, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
And then my senior brother, Anis Hafa. And if you see on the screen, you know what I put? I put a passionate educationist.
Good to see you.
I said, good to see you too. I said they should write there, passionate educationist. So they're here to help me dissect these issues. And then you at home also can join. Join via Twitter. It's at Nana Ansakwa. At Nana Ansakwa. Send your messages or your comments, and I read it out to you. And then later on, we'll get on to WhatsApp. But let me just read a little bit of this for you. The Christian Council of Ghana is calling on all political parties to address concerns of religious bodies as they intensify electioneering campaign across the country. The General Secretary, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frimpong, has observed the lack of interest in raising issues regarding the interest of the Christian community and other religious body in the country by politicians on the campaign front. Speaking to the Ebenezer congregation of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, Ashali Botwe in Accra, Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong congratulated the parties on the successful launch of their campaign and education on their manifestos. He, however, is unhappy that the manifestos fail to acknowledge the significance and influence of the church in national development. The CCG General Secretary enumerated that some key contributions of the church as its ownership of over 40% of health institutions in Ghana, the large number of people it employs in secretariat and affiliate business, the establishment of schools from the basic to the tertiary level, basic, secondary, tertiary, and special education, the church's role in public education and its contribution to substance of banking industry. And it goes on and on and on and on. And I will start with Reverend. So what's the situation with mission schools now? Is it government has taken over fully, or is it run sort of a 50-50 agreement?
Yeah, Nana, let me say thank you and good evening to those who have allowed us to enter into their bedrooms and their halls and and say we are so grateful for the opportunity for us to interact. And like you just read, this is a statement we put out there. We've for some time now, we watch with keen interest what's happening in the various political parties, the launch of manifesto, public education, the campaign, and all that. And we congratulate them because if we call for issue-based election and campaign, is the manifestos that must set the foundation, and that will also deepen what we call a social contract, so that I vote basing on some facts, and in future I can come back to you for accountability and stuff like that. So they've done very well. But having gone through their materials, NDC and the MPP, the highlights and all that they put out there, you realize that something is missing. The church, we have the devotional side of the church, prayer meetings. That's not what we are talking about. But we are talking about the developmental side of the church. And over the years, the churches in Ghana, we have positioned ourselves to be key partners in our national development. Not just yesterday, before even independence, the churches have been key partners in our national development. And what the churches have been able to do over the years have been directed by official government policies. It's not just accidental. You see, when the colonial authorities were there and the churches missionaries set up the school, the colonial authority entered into formal partnership with the churches. We know you have acquired the land, you have put up facilities. Government will support you, assist you to pay the teachers so that you run, because it is government responsibility to make sure every Ghanaian citizen acquire quality education. But you are doing great. You are supplementing government efforts. So we will only assist you to supplement. And that's how this idea of government-assisted schools came into being. But at the moment, it's like the churches and call all the churches that are running schools, and they will repeat what I'm saying, that the churches feel that they are being sidelined. It's not only the current administration, NDC government, it's been there. We had that problem under President Kufuor, Rawlings, and all that. When Dr. Spielgabra was Minister of Health, effort was made, to address this pushover. He was passionate about it. We couldn't solve it. When MPP was in power, Professor Phoebe, and if you call any of them, they know that we were making effort to have memorandum of understanding to address the partnership between government and the religious bodies, and we are still far away. And today, it's not only secondary schools, we have colleges of education and all that. And you get Director General of GES and all that, just sidelining the churches. Memorandum, communique, press statement have been made how many times? And it's like, it's not yielding results. So one would have expected that moving forward, such specific concerns of the religious bodies, you raised question about education, so I want to stop there, will be addressed. But you go through their document, and at best you get a statement like, we will sustain the effort of the faith-based bodies. What does that mean? We are talking about specific that if we are going to continue this partner, sometimes the churches are calling for their schools, to hand over our schools back. Because in terms of administration, curriculum, discipline, things are not how the churches will want their schools to be. Discipline is going down and all that. You see? But if you can't sustain the partnership, hand over our schools for us. But at least one would have expected that the various political parties will just give a position, a policy position statement, guideline that moving forward, the future will look like this. And it's very uncomfortable when you realize that they've pushed such issues for us, which is very important. These are the issues that church members should consider as they make decisions to where our votes should go.
Let me bring Anis in here. Anis, you've witnessed when schools were for the missionaries and you've witnessed when schools are now for the state. I mean, which would you prefer and why?
Good question. Good question. You know, I started school in a village, Catholic school, St. John's School. We didn't have toilets, we didn't have facilities and so on. But what I remember was that there was a lot of supervision. In fact, when I finished class 1, I could read and write Twi. I could read and write English, I couldn't speak it. For the sake that there was pride of ownership by the Roman Catholic Church. You know, and then from there, I went to Kumasi and went to another mission school, St. Peter's. And again, you know, it was run quite well. There was pride in ownership. That's very important. Now, I'll tell you this. I went back to my old school after I'd been in the U.S. for a long time. And I was surprised what I saw. I mean, the school had been totally run down. Frankly, it wasn't a school that I recognized, you know. So we want to, I mean, when we talk about, for me, the pride of ownership is very important. This house school, we love it so much, we not watch it deteriorate. So there's some to say about handing over the mission schools and so on. But the other point I also want to raise is this. We now live in the international arena. Ghana is as international as any. In fact, there are some schools in the US, before their students graduate, they need to have the international exposure, and they'll bring them to a place like Ghana. So, going forward, we have to refuse to look at our schools as local. And by that, what I mean is this. We have to begin to look at them as international schools. And I'm saying this from the point of view of another mission school that I went to. That was in Franspen. I was there in 1961. And then when you look at the way it was run then and the way it was run now, it can be disappointing based on my exposure and the standards that I expect a school like that to have. And because I also believe that they're also being run, most of our public schools are being run like Saito schools. And in fact, if you go to Achimota, when the freezer was there, and the trees, the flowers, you know, clean windows and that sort of thing, and you go there now, and you see broken windows and the rest of it, it's become a typical government institution where people who run it think it's a benjuma, and they don't seem to care too much, and so that the pride of ownership is not there. But, you know, I'm glad this debate is going on, because whether it's in a public, whether it's being run by government or whether it's being run by religious bodies, we have to begin to understand that we are shaping it along the lines of the international arena. And a lot of issues have to come up. The nature of examination, for example, the nature of the examination bodies, how are we competing with other countries? So these are the larger issues that have to be addressed, irrespective of who is managing it.
Also, I'll come back to you. You see, one of the things about mission schools was discipline. And even Muslims would want to take their children to mission school because they knew that there was no way you're going to come back the same way you went in. You'll be upright. With all this current globalization and everything, can the mission school bring back that discipline for which it was the pride of?
No, Mama, despite whatever you want to call it, the decay as he pointed out, as I now take Achimota out, almost all the best second cycle institutions in Ghana still are the mission schools. Take Achimota out. And all the Presec, the Prempe, the Opokuwale, the Bri girls, the Wesley girls, St. Rose's, the colleges of education, Wesley College, PTC, Akropong, Agogo, Women Training College. Mention all of them belong to Mawuli and the other, Disado, the Super, Infansipim, all of them are mission school, despite even the current challenges. Even though we have government school, those set up during Nkrumah's time and all that. But still, the best schools in Ghana, almost all of them belong to the churches. What it means is, even with the current challenges, there's still some of the traditions in there are still going on. The sad part is how over the years, governments are making some effort to push aside the churches. You see, those days, if you go to a Catholic school, and like all the mission schools, they will place a chaplain there to take care of the moral side, the ethical side of students, counseling, and all that. You know, and you still have that. But now they are being weakened again and again and again and again. You see? And that is why we are saying that we need to revisit the partnership. You know, I mean, those in the schools are Ghanaian children. It's a responsibility of government with taxpayers' money to make sure Ghanaian children get quality education to international standard.
Do they still have a space in the secular Ghana? Do they have space?
Secular, as in the fact that you are not a Ghanaian, a better Ghanaian because you are a Christian or you are a Muslim and all that. This nation is not governed by the ethos of a particular faith and all that. But it's not secular as if we have forgotten that some people have religious interests. That is not the case. I mean, you read all the political manifestos and they are talking about Zongo Fan and things and the teaching of Arabic, and we will pay people who are teaching Arabic. These are faith matters. And so, and you should not forget that in terms of ownership, I mean, I don't make my investment, and these investment are church investment. In the school, Presec was started by the Presbyterians, Krobodumase, and now in Legon. So you don't come in and say that you've taken over. How? I mean, that's not fair. Foreigners are having investment and government cannot do that. And why do you do that to the church? Because of what? You can't do that to Muslims, you see. But we need to revisit the partnership because it's for the common good of all of us. To me, that is where the direction must go, not the takeover impression sometimes they want to get. I'm not sure the churches will yield easily. I don't think so.
Anis, do you want to come in?
Yes, for me though, I'm quite concerned. I like the feeling that you are sharing in terms of how we're going to develop a mass of young people. For me, that's really my concern. The concern meaning that we have to begin to raise the Ghanaian youth at the same best standards as anybody else. What I feel so disappointed about in this country is that we tend to disregard and disrespect young people. We don't take them seriously. I mean, when I was in elementary school, we called students names, we insult them and that sort of thing, and you can't even express an opinion. And then it was very rigid in some way. You couldn't express opinions, your views, and that sort of thing. But what I'm looking at, though, is that irrespective of who is managing the schools, we have to begin to look at even the nature of the examination. But like I said, I want to expound on it now. A time will come that I believe, if you follow the West African Exams Council, the results from it, there are a lot of international institutions that will refuse to accept it because of the malpractice, stealing questions, and that sort of thing. So that's one issue there. The other issue is that the nature of the instructional methodology itself. You know, here we teach young people not to think for themselves. We think we are too dogmatic. We are afraid to empower young people. I'm saying this based on experience that I've had in other places because I've taught in other areas.
But how does that affect the mission schools?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, we need to be a little more open. I mean, if the mission schools are going to run the schools and they can afford to run it, I think it's a wonderful idea because the pride of ownership is very important. Nobody who works for a public institution has any pride in where they work. To the ministries, any government establishment. Set it up now, go back in a year, and the place looks decrepit. But the issue was this. Education is important. If the mission schools are coming in and they can begin to afford it and pay the teachers, that's one thing. But we also want to begin to look at arrangements where, let me give you an example. 2 of my kids were born in the US, but I brought them to Ghana to be educated here because I wanted them to understand the culture and at least speak one Ghanaian, one African language. We have that. I also know a lot of people outside Ghanaians who would like their children to be educated here, but they want to be educated along the lines of the international situation. We cannot be parochial. That is where I think we have to be open-minded enough so that, for example, when I was in elementary school, it was Catholic, but there were Muslims there because it was in a Zongo area. There was no discrimination there. When I was in Fanspim, another school that was religious, Methodist schools, we had, Nkrumah brought all kinds of students from the north. Being Chambers and the rest of them came to join us. So that openness has to be done. But the concern is the quality of instruction, the quality of the teachers, the open-mindedness, and letting young people know that, yes, They develop the confidence that you have. If the mission schools can do that and run the school professionally, and not that I'm going to, the head has to be a particular denomination, it has to be very selective. Who can manage the school? It has to be competency-based. The person who can manage the school is the person that we entrust our children to. But then, again, but what I'm suggesting to you, though, is that you need to now have a package. You know, we are speaking of vacuum now. We need to have a package that shows the seriousness with which you attach to the Presbyterian schools, for example. I think the Catholic schools should do the same thing. The Methodist schools should do the same thing. So that we can begin to have a proper debate, even in terms of how we're going to finance it, in terms of how the schools are going to be managed. So that now we have schools that speak to Ghana, knowing that other countries look up to Ghana since 1957, because we are the leaders. But when it comes to education now, others think that we are doing so well. And I said, by whose standards? I've seen much better, even right here in Africa. So this debate has to go on. But for me, whoever is going to manage the schools and manage it well so that our children develop the confidence, the competencies to compete in the international arena, that's what we're looking for.
And that is why these issues should have informed the manifestos. You know, for us, we waited for them to come out. Now we know the people we are dealing with. And that's why we have initiated this conversation. I also teach at the university. I teach at KNUST. I've chaired Prempeh College Board for 4 years. I teach in South Africa, Stellenbosch University. And so I have something also to compare. You know, and that is why we are saying you should not brush this aside. We shouldn't. Quality of education. Now, these are the things we should be debating in public. And I'm happy, Nana, you have given us this platform. And let me use your platform to request the various political parties, at least the two leading ones, that the various religious bodies, we would like to have a platform of engagement. You know, let's talk about them now. Even if, for whatever reason, such things should not find their way into their formal policy document, let's just start. They should not ignore the concerns of the churches, because we have interest.
The issue that I will raise, though, is anyone aware of the concerns that you have coming from the Presbyterian Church?
In fact, call the moderators, call the presiding bishops, call the caliphs, and they will repeat the things I'm talking about.
To a point where it's packaged that can also be brought forward for discussions?
At the moment, the challenge is we are not getting the attention of government. Sometimes...
No, the point I'm raising is this. We tend to depend too much on the government. You know, we have to also begin to look inwardly and show how prepared you yourselves are. For me, to be honest with you, I am for quality of education, and I tend to believe that, again, I mentioned the pride of ownership, which the government would not have for any schools, because it's not theirs. It's for the mission. So that has to be in place. But what I'm looking for is that there has to be a plan that will guarantee, for example, that when these schools come back to you, you run them better than the way they are being run now.
But we are not there yet.
Yeah, but you have to be there now.
No, we are even...
If you're serious, you have to be there now.
We are serious, and that is why this issue... In fact, recently, I think Professor Emmanuel Asante made a statement that if we don't take it, we'll push the church to a point that one day they may revolt. You know, because we want to sit down with somebody, you know, let's talk about this, because we have interest. And even that platform is becoming difficult. I'm telling you, just call Dr. Spill Gabriel into this conversation, that when he was Minister of Education, there were several meetings with him. Let's have even memorandum of understanding to guide the partnership. We couldn't get it there. Professor Fobi came, the heads of churches, Christian Council, Catholic Bishop, had how many times? Again and again. Sometimes let's meet the president because we have interest. Somebody must listen to us. And you must know you are dealing with government.
But let me ask you this. I keep coming back to that same point. Do you have a plan?
No, we had plan even before government came in. There was a time that administration, curriculum development, discipline, everything were in the hands of the churches. Now somebody says, get out from them. I've taken over. You see, so it's not like we are now going to evolve something. We had a plan. And then somebody, and you know, at the moment, the churches are running universities. You see? So you look at how the church university, which is a recent thing, do. But now where they are going and how they are, managing their investors. You see, and that should tell you that if somebody will listen to the conversation we are having this evening, because all the people, the gurus you will need to manage education, the resources are there.
The other question I also wanted to ask you is this. Would you like to do, let's say, looking at Presbyterian schools that you have in mind, do you want them all?
Not only Presbyterian, Christian Council, so I thought for all of them.
Yeah, okay. But let's say, for example, that we take religion A.
Yeah.
All the schools under the purview of religion A.
But the concern we are expressing, even the Muslim schools, the Islamic unit also have the same challenge.
What I was looking at is this. Like you want to take one aspect of it, run it, and show the expertise with which you're going to run it to make it successful.
But
for a start.
They don't have to prove themselves. They've done it before.
We've done it before. So
yeah, but
that's when you were educated.
That's when you were in Fansipim. That was the story you just told us.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago. So what I'm saying is this: if you are looking into the 21st century and going forward, I mean, pick one, and that you want to run in an exemplary fashion, so that it will speak for itself.
It's not a decision you can wake up in the morning and you say, I have taken Presec, I want to do X, Y, Z. These are policy issues. You can't. But of course, there are pure private schools in the system at the moment. And you still see now in Ghana, you realize that parents want to send their children to private schools, especially the basics, more than the Saito, and churches that are running pure private schools. Their students are doing better. Why they are doing better, I can't explain.
Let me take this one. Says, Nana, honestly, I think the churches should take back their schools because government has mismanaged everything in this country. This is Bright Kodia, and send your message at Nana Ansakwa on Twitter, and I read it for you at Nana Ansakwa on Twitter, and I read it for you. Also, the challenge I can see government having is that now your schools are cushioning a lot of problems. If the school's capacity is probably 1,000, they'll probably load it up to 1,800. But when they give it back to the churches, you're probably going to open the Bible and say, well, thou shalt not sin, therefore I'm going back to 1,000. Putting a lot of pressure on state. Well, all the extra students, what do we do with them? If we give you back the schools, it'll be a big challenge.
Read the documents, 1951, 1960, how the churches have functioned over the years. When he was at Infansipim, how Infansipim was. And the changes that are taking place in Infansipim is not just because of time. It's management, it's policies, decision by government. It's not because, then and now, how many years. It's not, the time frame that had caused it. It's the decision, official decision, governmental decision that have been taken. If something has changed over there, that is where the change has come from. And when the churches were there, he told us that even as far back as 1960s, Muslims were there. And the churches, and there are people Muslims who have studied in Christian schools, who have become imams and all that. And there are Presby Church, for instance, two of our former moderators studied in Tia Ahmadiyya. What we are talking about is not only the churches. Christians have been into Muslim school, Tia Ahmadiyya, and they have become pastors, not only pastors, moderators. Reverend Dr. Sam Prempe attended Tia Ahmadiyya Secondary School, Kumasi, Muslim school. He became a lecturer and all that, and #1 person in Presby Church. Reverend Dr. Frimpong Manson attended Tia Ahmadiyya. So you had a situation where Muslims were in Christian schools, they kept their faith. And then you get Christians who were in Muslim school. We have done it over the years. It is when government came in and the kind of decisions and policy directions that we are having, to me, that's where the confusion is coming from. And at this moment where manifestos are being discussed, public education, this is the time, it seems to me, government and the various political parties must engage. I'm not here to solve all the problem that if they hand over the school to you, how are you going to raise money? That's not what it seems to me this meeting is for. But we are saying that somebody must consider the concerns of the religious bodies, moving forward. Because the future...
What informed the changeover from the mission to the
that is
state?
the question.
Initially, and it did not start just yesterday.
No,
it was even the colonial authority, because the missions were setting up churches. The colonial authority was not setting up churches, And And so at a point, the colonial authority came to the churches that, let me support you, because you are doing a good job, And that's how the whole thing started. It was in Nkrumah's time that efforts were made, a possibility of even pushing out the churches. It didn't work. Now, ever since, various, administrations are trying, can we just push them aside? They are trying hard, but then the church, the word you use, pride of ownership. And again, let me say, you see, we need church members to continue to support the schools. But now that interest is going down because they see what is happening and these are school and how they are managing it and all the infrastructure, discipline, everything. What we don't have a say in it. So it is in the interest of even government to bring the churches on board. In this country, what we have in abundance, in this country is religion. Elsewhere, it's not like that. So we've reached a point where somebody must answer the question, how do we use religion even to facilitate our national development? All these religious bodies, how can we bring them on board so that they respond to real needs of Ghanaians? And these are the things, policy material like this must guide. The church people, we need you. You can help. So let's go, let's journey this way.
When was the tipping point of the state having more influence in the church?
At the moment, if you call somebody from GS, in fact, if you call the various churches, things that previously, we call it the units. And so they have regional managers of schools and all that we're doing. Now they have become as helpless and as empty as anything.
But at which year? Who was it? 84, 94, no. Before?
It's
80s.
It's a long story because it's been a gradual, pushed over thing. So I want to be very careful not to say that.
So now the church does not supply the headmaster. The state will supply.
No. They don't even go there at all. And sometimes you find, for instance, if say Prempeh College vacancy, and the government want to place somebody, and then the church will say, "But this is our school. What are you doing this to us?" And that struggle. And if you struggle and you are successful, sometimes if you are not. We don't need that tension. We are discouraging the churches in some of these things that they can also make significant contribution. And somebody must come back so that we can't ignore the religious bodies. It doesn't help anybody.
The concern that I have too, though, is that I'm for you. Whoever will run the school professionally, I'm for. Because the children who are in the school could care less who's managing it as long as they are getting quality. But what I can tell you is that looking at the funds from 1925, most of the new buildings that were hoisted on the Kwabocho Hill on the top were funded by the government. It's a Methodist school. It was started by the Methodist Freeman, Reverend Pico, and the rest of them. But it came to a point where the church could not run the school along the lines of economics. So they had to have the governor, the Gold Coast governor at the time, to invest and put up some of the buildings that we have in the hills now. So I'm trying to see how the government can wash its hands completely, as incompetent as they are,
but that is not for the direction. I'm calling for a partnership. We are in together because first and foremost, it's not the responsibility of the churches to ensure Ghanaian children are having quality education. It's the government. So what the churches are doing, they're only supplementing, but somebody must respect the churches for that and deepen the partnership, not to push them aside. So I'm not by this conversation saying that, government must leave. No.
But let me ask you this then. What specific role would you like to see the church play? Because this is a very, very important
moment, what I will want to call for is a deep, serious engagement. I don't want to answer all the questions here.
Yeah, but that's a bit generic. If, for example, if School A was given to you as a church, what kind of participation do you want to involve yourself in where you know that you
supply the headmaster, the chaplain, the music teacher?
For instance,
but that's what they're doing in Franceville now. All the headmasters have been Methodist, Methodist
oriented.
Oriented, yeah.
Now there are decisions, but I don't want to go to specific for some good reasons. There are decisions in church schools that are made that the churches are completely,
for example, the enrollment.
So many. I mean, for instance, if you hear, and sometimes even some headmasters are sacked for this. You have, say, a school like, say, Presec, Prempe, and the board will say this year we can take 700 students, and somebody tells you that you are going to take 1,000. Take them. But for some good reason, I don't want to do specific decision. What we want to achieve with this conversation is the churches are calling for dialogue, engagement as we move forward. So if we achieve that, certain specific will be discussed in there.
So now there's no defined line as to where state ends and where church would finish. There isn't any.
Government is gradually taking it over, and it's becoming difficult. It's becoming difficult. It's becoming very frustrating. And it's not a new thing. It's been there for some time now. Not this current administration. And the churches have been talking, engaging government and all that, but we are not seeing.
Let's move on to health, and then we'll come back to education. And I'm sure there are many people who are not aware that 40% of health facilities dotted across the country, again.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Setup. And there's no clear policy for churches to say,
it's also becoming another frustrating area for us. For instance, and like you said, it's true. Go to Ministry of Health. 40% of all hospitals, clinics in this country belong to the churches. They are under a body we call Christian Health Association of Ghana, set up by Christian Council of Ghana and the Catholic Bishop Conference. And at the moment, we manage 40%. And in these hospitals, our staff don't go on strike. You know, if you accept to work in our hospitals, you don't use strike action as
any means of anything.
And so when government hospitals are on strike, you hear Ministry of Health, the ministers calling people go to the church hospitals. Churches take loan to manage their hospitals.
Is it because we assume that, well, if it's for a church Sunday, they will get money, so the hospital will get money?
You do that to any other investor, any other person who has invested in any other sector. Would government do that? We take loans to run the hospitals, and sometimes 10 months, national health insurance have not been paid to the churches.
Is it because we think, maybe the church, you give it to
Why
God?
Do you do that? This strategic group partner, that when you are in crisis, and these hospitals are in villages, remote areas where government are not extended health facilities, the churches are there. And when the Kolebu and the Konfanoche and others are on strike, these are the hospitals that save the situation. And we have instances that Kolebu and Konfanoche have been on strike how many months? And the church hospitals saved the situation. Somebody should have responded to moving forward how we want the church hospitals, mission hospitals, to be, strengthened to save this country. We are not offering or whatever. Somebody must. And now at a point, the churches were contemplating, do we sue government even for our money? Because for us, a strike action is outside the conversation. So there are real frustration, and our that we are calling for that these are real genuine concerns. Let us even identify them. And if we don't even have solutions today, at least we work towards them. But they should not be just pushed aside.
At least one would say, there are private people who also own clinics and their hospitals. And if they go on the NHS scheme, will also get delayed. If you're running a business for profit, because then...
No. That is another side. Let me tell you. Go to Agogo Hospital. Go to Wenchi. Agogo Hospital is Presbyterian Hospital. Wenchi Hospital. Go to Bato. Go to Boko Hospital. Go to all those places. The churches have run these hospitals how many years? Some 80 years. Agogo Hospital and the rest. And the churches have never taken 0.001% from the hospital. They don't take money. They put the monies back into the hospital. So the churches, Christian hospitals, our intention is not profit making. All these years, there's not a single church that will go to a hospital to say, we set up this, so tomorrow, today we have come, we are taking X. So even that idea that, but if a private person make the investment and you are taking your profit, why should that be an interest of the government? That is not how Christian Health Association of Ghana hospitals are run. They're not run like that.
Well, so how is it run?
You know, they are run.
Painting, refurbishment, upkeep.
That is why I'm saying sometimes literally they take loan from banks to run the hospitals. Then you have 10 months arrears and you don't know, and you write letters and meet ministers of health. I've been on how many times? Several meetings with ministers of health that we need our money. You know, these are facts that if you call Mrs. Sharia Ashite, the current minister of health and all that, they all know the struggles the churches have gone through. Letters, communicate, meetings in their conference. So it shouldn't be, because this group, you see, you talk about poverty early on. Our hospitals are pro-poor. Just to see how can we help. And so somebody must find a way of sustaining that interest in this group.
Let me take a quick break and come back. And again, we'll try and find out from Osofo what exactly it is the state can do to protect, help, edge on, seal off, fence off. Don't move, we're coming straight back. And you thought it was a simple subject? Who better runs our schools and our mission hospitals? The state or the missions themselves? Keep your messages coming at Nana Ansakwa, KWAO. Abongo says, Nana, the faith schools must be handed back to them to enable them bring back discipline which is lost in the senior high schools. Atu Kwamena Crentel says, please let Ghanaians depend less on government and have a package. Watching you live from Worcester in Massachusetts. Greetings to you in Massachusetts. And then Atu Kwamena Crentel says, I think the Reverend should tell Ghanaians what package they have as a mission, and so that they can depend less on government. Mate Akor Ishmael, now how many colleges of education do the state have? To find that for you. Farouk Salif, who said, please, our African values are dying out and our society is breaking down due to that. Today, rich young people are elders in religion. To Kwamena Crenzel, please, can you read it for the benefit of Ghanaian tongues? Well, I think, Atu, I read your message for you. But keep your messages coming. Is at Nana Ansakwa on Twitter, and then I would read it out for you. But with regards to the mission hospitals, is there something clear cut? You say, look, state, because we have 40% at every 3 months, pay us so that we can survive, some protection for the mission hospitals or something. I don't know.
Still, there's a line for some good reason.
You want to keep it, okay.
What we want to achieve with this discourse is, now that the various political parties are out there educating Ghanaians about what they represent, we will want them to appreciate the concerns of religious bodies and address them. And so I don't want to give impression that we want to solve. These are policy matters. And we are not here to say we have all the answers. We don't. But at least we want the people, you see, people in power must pay attention to the concerns of the people they seek to rule. And that is all that. So we are only expressing a concern. For instance, these church hospitals, that are in remote areas, we are having PPP. We are having foreign investors coming in, and because we want them to survive, we are giving them all concessions and rebates and all that. What's the package for Christian hospitals that are serving the needs of Ghanaians? They don't take any profit from the hospitals. MPP, NDC must tell us what is going to be different after December 7th. Somebody must come out and tell us, and we want that to inform the decisions that we make. So I'm not here to say I have all the answers for them, but I'm also asking them, now that your strategic planners are on the drawing board, what have you seen? What are your answers? We are waiting. But don't ignore us, because we are a strategic group that we, over the years before independence, we have always been here. And at least somebody must take us serious.
On that note, I'm being told I need to take a second break, so I'll take a quick second break. And then when I come back, since Osofu is here and our niece is here and we're going into an election, we just want to find out what we're going to do with, the young ones that get overly excited when it comes to this time. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. It was an interesting. I have Reverend Dr. Opini Frimpong and my senior brother Anis Hafa in studio. Even though it's not what we're talking about, but if they are here at this season, it's important that we talk about it. This one's from Isaac Oseiwusu, who says, from what Osofu is saying, government is taking undue advantage of the church. Well, that's your opinion. But at Nana Sakwa, I'll keep your messages coming. I really out to you. But Osofu, a few more days to election, and when it gets here, the youth get overly excited. And it looks as if all common sense disappears. I don't know. How can we communicate for them to understand that, yes, by all means, support whoever it is you support, but in a peaceful manner? How do we do the communication?
The problem is not the young people. For me, the problem is with the political parties, the leaders. Here, the two leading political parties. You see, something has come to be known as peace industry. Now, several NGOs, people are going around talking about peace and media houses and all that, religious bodies everywhere. Now, it seems to me that the political parties, the leaders and their full soldiers, don't appreciate that aspiration, that feeling Ghanaians are expressing. Leadership is not about personal comfort. Leadership is to respond to the aspirations of the people. And Ghanaians, young and old, everywhere, are saying before, during, and after December 7th, we need national cohesion. We need peace. Peace for development. Peace for education. Then you get politicians who go on platform and telling everybody how they are ready and they are armed and how they can kill and they are the people who are arming the young people. You go to some part of this country, they are shared and they put young people there. They go, they give them money, they give them everything, and they give them instruction, go destroy this person's posters, go build them, kill them, anything, I'm there. So we have reached a point that those who want to become excellencies and honorables shouldn't become excellencies and honorables on the back of innocent blood. They must uphold their credibility, their integrity and decency in the process towards attaining power. They should not become honorables on the day that they will be sworn into office. They should not become honorables on that day. The process towards attaining office must equally be honorable. This is what is missing. What we are witnessing at Kukum, Suhum, Odododio, Nima recently and other. It's just a shame. And our politicians, maybe let me use your platform to say, all of them, now the 7 must publicly come out to say that this is not the legacy we want to leave behind. We don't want violence. I'm a non-violent, and our party is a non-violent party. If you are with us and you go that way, we will disown you. They don't do that. If it's against the other person, they protect their people, and all that. That must stop. That must stop. And our security agencies must prove to everybody that they don't have favored sons and daughters anywhere, and that the door to violence is shut. At the moment, it's like, we are not very sure. We are hearing what the Minister of Interior is saying. But the unending investigation to political crime must stop somewhere.
Anis, you have to check.
We have a course in the Ghana Education Service syllabus, moral education. And that's exactly what you're saying. You don't teach people through the textbook. We teach them by example. How do we, the elders in society, how do we hold our own esteem? What is the How do we show how young people should behave by our own character? And it goes all the way to the homes where the parents are. You know, so many times when these arguments come and, we're teaching young people moral education and so on, and then even when you begin to look at, serious stuff, when you begin to look at the Auditor General's report in terms of how monies in this country are spent at the government level, at the regional level, at the district level, you will cry. And then you go back to the district and there are no toilets for children. You know, these are some serious issues that have to be discussed. And then the worst part is where young people begin to see. And
do you think we'll ever grow out of this, or we are stuck with this?
But you know
nonsense?
something, from a teacher's standpoint, we are doomed to be optimistic, because under no circumstances can I teach young people for me to be a doomsayer. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm so happy, with the determination that you have in terms of how we should really look at our schools, and even how the means to the end of being honorable. These things should come from you and from everybody else, because what we do at home, what we do in our churches are very, very important, because that's the message that young people see and hear. And then, especially when you listen to the news and the kind of language that is being used to degrade other human beings in this country. I think these things have to stop, because, this is the only country that we have. We have young people leaving the country and being abused at the embassies, traveling, crossing the Sahara, crossing the Mediterranean, for their lives. And we have a beautiful country like Ghana. We have to stand up for it.
Well, all too soon, that's what time will allow us. Doesn't time fly when the issue is so important? But hopefully we'll get in here to do part 2 and see, after the politicians have met the Christian Council, we'll definitely want to be a fly on the wall and give them a platform as to what the way forward is going to be. But most of you will be asking, where did you get your nice shirt from? Well, take a pen and paper, 024-366-2001. Tantis Fashions, they give me my shirts for the show, 024-366-2001. Give them a call and get yourself a nice shirt for yourself. But I want to say thank you very, very much to Reverend Dr. Aponi Frimpong. Thank you to my senior brother, Anis Hafa, who shed light onto such an important subject. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And as usual, tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Keep watching.